let's go and talk about the state of misery. I know it's Missouri, but everybody in chat has informed me that it's actually Missouri. Yeah, every single one. So we'll get into the fan art section, and then we need to talk about some very interesting things that are coming out of that state right now as a result of some recent Supreme Court decisions. So let's go ahead and get right into it after. Here is from a Splinter Kid. I did an art, question mark. You did an art, period. The next one we have is from Hawanja. They said a demonic Suris. This is one of the most extreme takes on my character I have ever seen. But it looks metal as fuck. So there is that. The last one we have here is from Claw Screamer. Said a little practice animation. Probably won't cover it. It looks adorable, though. It's like a little golf swing. I'm just imagining, like, a little Slime Cirrus golf ball right here just getting, like, punted. Just... whee! 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 All of them. As always, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, if you haven't subscribed already, or hit the bell notification icon, or hit the like button on the video, all those things help the channel out a metric fuck ton, as well as becoming a patron. If you haven't done any of those, maybe consider doing so. With that said, let's go ahead and get right into everything proper. So... I've got a couple of articles to look at here on this. The first one says the extreme hypocrisy of the Missouri Statute essentially banning pregnant people from getting a divorce. A bizarre Missouri law has been getting national attention after a viral tweet and subsequent story from the Riverfront Times. Let's take a look at the tweet real quick. Find it. Today's horrifying fact: in 5 United states, you can't get a divorce if you're pregnant. Not all states allow getting divorced while pregnant. The laws in Texas, Arizona, Arkansas, Missouri, and Florida require that the married couple waits until after the child comes to this world before getting a divorce. No. Every micro ounce of that feels wrong, but let's continue here. Under the law, a pregnant person can still file for a divorce, but a judge can and typically does refuse to grant the divorce until they have given this advertisement a fucking X. Until they've given birth or otherwise are no longer pregnant, possibly via a miscarriage or abortion, which is, of course, also now a crime in Missouri after 6 weeks. The other states where this law exists, Arkansas, Texas, Florida, and Arizona, also have heavy restrictions or outright bans on abortion or are currently working to implement them. Said, hold on, Florida doesn't allow you to get divorced if you're pregnant? Yeah, it's Florida. Did you expect anything different? The armpit of the United States? No. Mommy's baby, daddy's baby. The assumption is that the husband is the father every time. Yeah. Enzo says, didn't her new Child Protective Services allow for the father to get custody if the wife divorces? It's hard. It can happen, but it's difficult. So at what point do these states just declare women the property of their husband? I feel like that's already getting kind of close to that with the way those things are worded, right? It says, if it sounds like some dystopian-level archaic misogyny, it definitely is. It's also dangerous. People who are experiencing intimate partner violence are more at risk of being killed by their abusive partner during pregnancy, and homicide is the leading cause of death amongst pregnant women. That's fucking terrifying. In 2009, a Washington court ruled in favor of a pregnant woman whose husband had become abusive, declaring that the state's Equal Rights Amendment prohibited gender-based discrimination, which includes denying her the right to get a divorce based on her pregnancy status. So why can't a person get divorced if they're pregnant? Well, the article goes on to say, the reasoning behind this law is rooted in a stunning degree of hypocrisy. The actual statute does not give a reason. It simply says that a woman involved in a divorce filing will have to state her pregnancy status along with other extremely basic facts like her name and address. But Daniel Drake, the woman at the center of that Riverfront Times article, not only had to deal with the law personally and resubmit multiple divorce filings, one after learning she was also pregnant and then another after she'd given birth, but she's also a family law attorney, so she has a unique amount of insight there. According to Drake, the reason why pregnancy will put divorce proceedings on hold is that the court can't make custody rulings until the baby's been born. Why? Because, as she puts it, Missouri divorce law does not see fetuses as humans. Which is pretty incredible given Missouri, like so many other states, is investing heavily in the idea of fetal personhood as the entire justification for banning abortion. That's an interesting bit of law. So conveniently, the woman has to have her body controlled because the fetus isn't a person, and therefore the rulings have to change based on its status. It must gain personhood before a ruling can be made on it, but the person who's pregnant cannot actually get the divorce at all, or can't get an abortion because the fetus is a person. It's a very astounding bit of hypocrisy when you consider that. Like, these are completely incompatible ideas. Chip, hand this here. Come here. Come here. That here, buddy. I take this from you, because that is not yours. That is Thumper's, and you may have this from me. No, Chip, you may have this from me. That is yours. Jesus. He took Thumper's, like, Thumper has a little bit of wood for, like, gnawing on, because he's a bunny. His teeth and nails are always growing. He needs ways to file those down. And Chip was just taking it like, nom, 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 it's fine. Anyway, that you can't have the court order that dictates violation and child support for a child that doesn't exist, Drake tells the paper. I have no mechanism as a lawyer to get that support going. There's nothing there because it's not a real person. Another family law attorney told the outlet that this applies even if there's absolutely no dispute over custody, paternity, or anything else that could be an issue. So it's just about controlling women's bodies then. All of the technical reasons that the state could give for denying divorce on these grounds, when literally every reason is given. I give 3 reasons you can't get a divorce. You address those 3 reasons and show that they're non-issues. And then they go, well, you can't get a divorce anyway. Then those 3 reasons were never a thing. They were never the reason in the first place. All it is wanting to control women's bodies for an amount of time. And bear in mind, the reason that I use women here and not just people who are pregnant, because I know trans men can get pregnant. The state in this scenario, okay, guys, stop. The state in this scenario, they still see everyone as women in this case. They do. As much as that sucks and is obviously transphobic, in these scenarios, the state is just exerting control over female bodies that have been assigned female at birth. Like, that's what they're doing. Said when the mandatory issued government girlfriends. What do they do? Okay, fun aside, if we're doing the mandatory issued government girlfriends thing, what happens for polyamorous people? Can a polyamorous girlfriend then be mandatorily issued to multiple people? Or can a polyamorous person get multiple mandatorily issued partners? This feels like a mess. That would be a mess. I know that's not a thing happening, but Party of Justice says the legal reason for pregnant women not being able to get a divorce in Missouri is because the unborn is not a person, so joint custody and support cannot be adjudicated until the first breath. You heard that right. Not a person until born. Are relationships immediately ended if one side is infertile? Well, I guess all dominant people are fucked up. Subs can't find doms, because as we know on the internet, you're either submissive and breedable or dominant and infertile. There is no in between. So in family court, the fetus is not a person until it's born, but the text of Missouri's law banning abortion says the fetus is a separate, unique living human being, and that the life of each human being begins at conception. We've always known that there's no factual basis for those statements, but it's pretty incredible to see the state lawmakers contradict themselves in actual legal precedent. It's clearer than ever that these anti-abortion Republican politicians literally just make these things up as they go and couldn't know less about pregnancy and the entire reproductive journey. Just look at Missouri Governor Mike Parson in the interview from last week, say that the details of a medical necessary emergency abortion should be left up to, brace yourself, the pregnant person and their doctor. Mark Maxwell says here, Governor Mike Parson signed a proclamation last month activating an immediate ban on any and all abortions. The lone exception is when a mother faces medical emergency that could result in irreversible physical impairment of a major bodily function of the pregnant woman. Doctors and pregnant women experiencing complications want to know when they can begin care. Do they have to wait until after internal bleeding has already begun, after signing the bill into law? Parson now says it's a complicated issue, and doctors and patients should decide.
Hospitals and prosecuting attorneys have asked for more guidance about what medical emergency is defined as under state law. It didn't seem like the Department of Health's explanation did much to explain.
I can barely hear.
Do you think that there needs to be a special session or more legislation to explain that?
The legislation will have to play that out. No, not a special session, because you're talking a very complicated issue that's going to take time to figure out how to do this. And number one, bureaucrats and attorneys don't need to be the ones deciding on what is life-threatening. Doctors need to have a seat at that table, and frankly, they're more qualified to be able to make that decision than anybody else is.
So a doctor is more qualified to make the decision about whether or not an abortion is necessary in a person's situation? Why don't we leave that up to the patient or the doctor in general then? If the argument is going to be that the bureaucrats and politicians are less qualified here, then why should they have any say at all? Snugglefuzz, thank you for redeeming your points for an owl. But no, in my humble opinion, bureaucracy needn't be anywhere near any legislation regarding a woman's body. He doesn't. There's no... I can't conceive of many reasons in which he would want that. Now, I know there's at least one idiot in my chat, not my chat right now, but in my comment section, because they have said this before. What happens if your population levels get too low? Here's my answer. I don't care. Population levels in the world have been astronomically lower than they are right now. I don't care, and nor do I have to care. The human race will adapt and move on, hopefully without subjugating and forcing people's bodies into pregnancies they don't want to be a part of. And yeah, the actual answer to that is immigration. Like, a lot of people don't want to admit that immigration is a solution to that problem because they like to fall back onto the white replacement myth and go, look, the Jews are trying to make it to where there are less white people. To what end? What happens? If every person who comes over here integrates into society, what changes about the society? Nothing? Okay, cool. Now that we've understood that genetics don't have jack shit to do with society, we can go back to living in one together. That it's estimated that around the time of the Toba eruption, there were between 3,000 and 10,000 people left. We had 3,000 people. That explains Alabama. We do have a little bit more to look into here. Under an old Missouri law from 1973, a woman can't get a divorce finalized if she's pregnant. She can file for the divorce, but it won't be finalized. We already went into all that. Journalist Anna Spoor, in an article published by the Kansas City Star on July 20th, explains in Missouri, divorce cases cannot be finalized if a woman is pregnant, since a custody agreement must first be in place, and that was said by multiple attorneys. That custody agreement cannot be completed until the child is born. So we have this is confirmed by multiple sources here. This is just normal. Many people replied with disbelief. Others say they knew from personal experience. At 34, Piper divorced her husband, but it was not an abusive relationship. Her attorney at the time warned her to not get pregnant. According to Spear, 8 questions are asked for everyone filing divorce in Missouri. One is whether or not the wife is pregnant. If the answer is yes, the divorce proceedings can continue if the attorney chooses, but cannot be finalized until the woman is no longer pregnant. That is because, according to Missouri Statute, the court must first establish paternity of the child before a divorce can be finalized. Due to statutory presumption that a baby born during a marriage is the child of the husband, a DNA test is often completed after the child is born in order to establish paternity to the court. Then divorce proceedings can continue. The reason for all ultimately is child support considerations. According to Gordon, the Missouri law makes no exception for survivors of domestic violence. We oftentimes see an abused spouse not have the financial means to establish a home. Being legally entitled to things like money and actually having that money are two different things, particularly when a case is ongoing. So they don't make any exception for an abuse case. They don't make any exception for somebody who is dealing with that, even if it's documented, even if they know for a fact that financial compensation is required for the person who has been suffering that abuse. Nothing is granted in these situations. It's just women's bodies being controlled by the state, by typically Republicans or people like Joe Manchin, who do not see a reason that this is bad or wrong. Said no exceptions seem standard for these laws. It does. It's almost as if the oppression is baked in there. Now, what I don't think has happened, I don't think there's a bunch of Republicans sitting in the middle of a meeting room when these things are being drafted going, how do we do this? How do we find a way to control women's bodies? Let's see here. What do we do? I think it's more that people who already have a predisposition for wanting to control women's bodies then use that predisposition subconsciously to try to find ad hoc rationalizations for this. Well, we have to save the children. Of course, it's very important to save these kids that don't exist yet and might never exist, because what is a miscarriage but an abortion carried out by God? Are we going to take him to legal task? Let's do that right now. Put God on trial. Fuck him. I mean, we're already dealing with a guy who would be in incredible danger if legislation actually came out against him that was incredibly homophobic. The biggest thing to the guy's name is being nailed by a bunch of Romans in front of everybody, mind you. You say that, but guesses vaguely. It's almost like it's systemic or something. Yeah. It's almost as if a lot of these issues get baked in, not because individual people are misogynistic or are racist, but people have long since lost the ability to identify at what point in time that misogyny or racism has baked itself into society. Now, an easy way to handle this would be utilizing something like what CRT utilizes, where you identify at what point racism occurred in a systemic issue. What commonplace thing that happens today stemmed from something, a racist principle in the past? We could do the same thing for misogyny. We can use the exact same tools. But oh wait, the GOP has been on a campaign against CRT. So a practice that has the ability to utilize data to determine when something has or has not been racist at one point in time, and how that has affected society at large afterwards. If those mechanics can be used in the exact same way to point out where misogyny was part of this, so like a law like this, it's almost like hamstringing the methods involved and identifying any of that would be something the GOP would find very inconvenient. Those are things that if we utilized, if we could point out, hey, you're being misogynistic. No, I just care a lot about babies. No, you don't. Also, that's a weird statement. Don't say, like, don't scream at the top of your lungs you love kids. That sounds weird. But you can point to an area where, hey, actually, no, This thing is because of misogyny. You yourself may not think of yourself as a misogynist because you have a daughter, or you have a wife, or you have a friend who happens to be a girl, or you're an incel and you happen to really like the female form. None of those things suddenly, like, make it to where you're not a misogynist. Misogynist is in the habits you have, the actions you take, the thoughts you think, and less about the people you keep around you. After all, it is a fallacy to make any judgment based on the company someone keeps. Herr Schrodinger says it doesn't help that half of those old white people still consider women property. Yeah. I do think that not all, and even not a majority of Republicans are Nick Fuentes types, but the fact that enough Republicans are willing to be around Nick Fuentes types caused me a huge issue. Just saying. Anubian says, I can't imagine being forced to marry a person I don't have any attraction to. I can imagine it. I can imagine that all the time. There's plenty of, like, forced marriage situations that are all fucking unethical, but there you go. So people always think of it like you are something, or you aren't racist, for example, when really you're on a spectrum, and you may or may not say things that slide you in one direction or the other from day to day. Yep. Radical Ecocom, thank you for the follow. Big Genghis, thank you for subscribing. 70% of the GOP believes in the Great Replacement theory, so 70% of them are Nick Fuentes. I don't think the Great Replacement theory alone is enough to get you to Nick Fuentes levels, but it's certainly a component. It's certainly a large one. Yenzo says, nah, misogynists will likely say, well, sorry, you didn't think I should have any say in my kid's life. My wife doesn't get to abort my child just because she gets with someone else. I have a right to be involved in my kid's life. That's my kid. Well, my answer to that is, you're right, that's your kid, but if your kid is having to use your wife's body right now, and we do not currently have a surgery that can put that womb in your body, then up until the point where it's born, that's her decision, not yours. I'm sorry, that really sucks. You two should have a conversation about that, but ultimately it's her body being used. Up until the point where that thing is born, that's my primary concern. Her body is being used. Mr. Softly says, the good thing about me is not only can I not think about being married at all, I also just can't think. Yeah. Risen Sex Seth has to believe in the white replacement theory, is also to believe in Jewish control and enough anti-Semitism to be just like Nick. Again, I think it's a component. I think it's a big component. Because you got to think, there are people that believe in the great replacement theory but don't believe that Jews are controlling the world because they don't have the ability or have not figured out yet that the dog whistle of, like, globalist, for instance, they don't know that that's just a dog whistle for Jewish people, right? If they don't know that, if they don't understand that, then, like, a helpful thing would be to look at them and go, I have a question. If I said global bankers control the world, would you agree with me? And if they go yes, you can go, okay, cool. You understand that that is just code word for Jew, right? You understand that that's what that means, right? And if they sit there and, like, if they start backpedaling, they at the very least recognize that, oh shit, they've done an anti-Semitism. But if they don't, then there's a different conversation to be had. Like, hey, maybe don't be an anti-Semite. We went to war with Nazis. Maybe don't be one. Hershwagner says, if men carried the children, there would be many more abortion clinics. There would be more abortion clinics than Starbucks. Isn't that a George Carlin quote? I want to say that's a Carlin quote. I would 100% think that that's a George Carlin quote. But anyway, that's as far as we're going to get in here. I think that for the 5 states where this is the case, this is incredibly fucking immoral. I'm sorry, you can't have it both ways. You can't have a law on the books because a fetus is considered a person to you, and then have a law on the books based on the fetus not being a person and therefore not being able to make certain decisions there. Like, you can't have it both ways. And in any case, if it's understood that a custody conversation is going to have to happen where that child's concerned anyway, then maybe, just maybe, that's a conversation that can be had at any stage, even if you grant person, if you have to. Like, in a world where we can't get abortion back for people living in those states, which I believe we can, but in the hypothetical world where we can't, maybe let's at least make it, you know, less fucking dystopian for them. Maybe that. They love doublethink. It's doublethink plus pre-person. Yeah. I hate to use the meme. It's literally 1984, but I mean, yeah, there we are. There we be. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I don't have much more to add to this other than this is immoral and shitty and wrong. But you've already heard me say that a lot. So let me know what you think. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, everybody, insert end of video tagline here.